Hi, everybody. I don't know to say good morning or good afternoon or good evening because you may be listening to this at different times. I'm going to be talking about when does love begin and when does love end and what brings that about. Loneliness creeps across the winter landscape, leaving loneliness and desolation. And people often turn to the dream of a Hollywood ending of living happily ever after in a secure and happy relationship. In fact, many surveys that ask the question, what is the single most important thing that you desire in life? And most of the time, the number one response is an enduring, loving relationship. And this is chosen over financial security or a successful career. So we already have a longing, a wish for a happy, secure, and enduring relationship. And when people are asked, what is it you want from your partner in this kind of relationship? And it almost always is expressed as a close emotional bond. They want to experience a closeness with their partner and the assurance that their partner will respond to them when they feel distressed or anxious. When securely attached, that is that my partner will respond to me when I'm feeling anxious, when I feel a need for connection, for reassurance, they will respond to me in a supportive and understanding and compassionate and empathic manner. When I feel that I have that support from my partner, each person in this relationship will feel more confident in themselves and be more able to go into the world based on their secure relationship. And when each partner feels that their partner has distance from them, is critical of them, has withdrawn from them, then each partner feels distress. When this situation becomes chronic and a permanent pattern of interaction, that is where the partner or both partners are critical, attacking, depressed, avoidant, distant, blaming, then this relationship is going to be under stress. And it is the beginning of where love ends. In training many years ago, dependency was seen as a taboo in relationships. But contrary to common belief, being able to depend on our partners have very positive effects. Being able to share our emotions, having strong ties to our partner actually leads to greater independence and greater confidence in decision making, as well as actually achieving our individual goals. So dependency in the sense of feeling that we can rely on and depend on our partners actually brings about healthier responses. Research has shown that emotional isolation is a more dangerous health risk than smoking or high blood pressure. And the risk of stroke or heart attack is doubled in isolated people. So close friendships, however, that emulate the positive benefits of a satisfying relationship also can have positive outcomes. So to suffer is unavoidable, but to suffer alone is intolerable. We all at times are going to suffer, but when we have the support of a partnership, then it becomes tolerable. Worse than these outcomes is when the relationship is replete with hostility, attack, criticism, and distance. Increasing both men and women's chances of heart attack and high level of stress hormones occur in these kinds of hostile, attacking, distant relationships. Conflict and hostile-laden relationships also lead to anxiety and depression because we begin to experience immense self-doubt and helplessness, precursors to depression and anxiety. Is this phenomenon new? In 1939, women ranked love only as fifth as a basis for choosing a mate. Now it is ranked number 1, and college students say that what they most want from a marriage is emotional security. They are right if you accept that love is not the icing on the cake, but love is the cake and the icing. So to summarize so far, we choose and are drawn to those that we imagine and experience will meet our needs for emotional security, for secure attachment, that they will respond to us when we need or just want emotional connection, that they will give support when we are distressed or when we just want contact. And these are the roots that will begin the growth and will nourish a loving, secure relationship. In my extensive work with couples, I've found that almost all at some time or another experience some level of conflict and times of distancing, criticism, attack. But those with secure attachments quickly But when this does not occur, it is the following pattern that I'm going to illustrate that answers the question that I hear so often in my couple work. We were once so in love, they will say, so full of hope and trust and belief. But what happened? Where did our love go? How did we find ourselves so distant from each other? So just imagine this scenario. Here is husband sitting at home. It's about 6 o'clock. He's wearing his Trump red tie. And he is waiting for his wife to come home. And he was expecting her at about 5:30. He hears at 6 o'clock the garage door open. His wife comes up the stairs and she's quite happy to be home. She says, "Hi, honey, I'm home." He doesn't respond to her. She lets it go and she says, "I'm sorry that I'm late, but you know that young man, that 17-year-old boy that I've been working with, treating in intensive care, he died at about 5 o'clock and I just couldn't leave the family." And again, he just says, "Yeah." Doesn't respond, doesn't turn to her. She flares. She feels the rejection, the lack of support that she was so looking forward to receiving. And she says, "Oh, that's it, huh? That's how you're going to respond." He says, "Oh, here we go again," with anger. She storms off and says, "I'm out of here." He says, "Good." She goes, he retreats somewhere. But in a securely attachment relationship, when she comes back a few hours later, he welcomes her and he says, "I'm really sorry that I didn't respond. I was upset that you were late, feeling some neglect. I know you're under tremendous pressure at the hospital. And she says, I can understand that. I've been thinking about that. And they just move toward each other, hug, feel securely attached again, and they will repair this. But if either of them cannot respond and meet the other, and the attack or withdrawal continues, and this becomes chronic, this relationship, as I said, will get into serious difficulty. Many couples, and sometimes therapists too, miss that most fights are protests over distancing of non-responding. In this case, when the wife came in and he didn't respond to her because he was upset that she hadn't called or said she was going to be late, it's a protest over the non-response, over the distancing. In other words, emotional disconnection. Can I depend on you? Will you be there for me? Can I call on you? Will you respond? And will you respond in a way that I feel loved, safe, valued? Will I be reassured that I really matter to you, that I am a priority? Do you rely on me, or am I just the housekeeper, the breadwinner? All the complaints, all the blame, the attacks, the withdrawal, the demands, all of these are core attempts to draw our partners back into safe, secure connection. Unfortunately, they usually have the opposite effect. When someone criticizes us or attacks us, we either are going to attack back or withdraw or shut down. In such situations, the underlying emotion that does not get expressed is fear. It may be a fear of loss, it may be a fear of abandonment, it may be a fear of rejection, of being unlovable, of being too much. All of these fears can emerge. In a strongly bonded relationship, though, these fears are quickly extinguished because our partner reassures us, lets us know that we are loved and significant. But when these relationships, the bonds are weak, they're frayed, we go into demanding or clinging or drawing comfort, much as we did with our parents. Or we may withdraw, again, as we did with our parents, to self-soothe and to protect ourselves. In such situations, we may hope that our parents will come and find us and reassure us. And again, in healthy relationships, this situation is quickly repaired. But if not, a pattern can set in. Some time ago, I saw a couple that had been together for about 15 years. And when they came in the first session, I asked them, what is it that has brought you here and what do you want from couple therapy? And they looked at me and kind of went blank. And they looked at each other and both of them said, we don't know. And it wasn't really until about the fourth session that I began to get a sense of what had brought this couple here. The husband said, the other night, I came down to our small kitchen with our small kitchen table, and the table was set with just two places. And the rest of the table was cluttered with her work, my son's homework, school papers. And they were kind of huddled together, talking and laughing and speaking in Swedish, which I don't understand or speak. And I looked there and I realized there was no place for me. And I just turned and walked away, but with a deep sense of sadness. And I looked at his wife as to how she was responding. And for the first time in those 4 sessions, I saw real emotion, and tears were coming down her cheeks. And I asked her when she heard this, how did she respond? And she said, I feel really sad, but worse, I had no idea. I always thought he was indifferent to us, didn't care to join us. So he's right. We didn't make room, but I always felt rejected. So here was a couple that was longing for contact, but had lost the way to express those longings and were too fearful of rejection and criticism. What we're asking for in these kinds of situations is be with me. Come and find me. Help me feel safe. So why don't we respond to the call? And why don't we respond with care and affection? One reason is that we're not tuned into our partner. We distort their message. We are tuned too much into our own deprivations, our own pain. Or we may distrust the call. We may see it as manipulative, dishonest. Pardon me. We may be too vulnerable or too restricted ourselves to say what we really want or what we really need out of fear of being rejected. And maybe that's happened too many times before. 3, we may see ourselves as too demanding or too dependent or undeserving, so we don't state clearly what we really need. And again, the fear is that we will not be responded to in the way that we wish. 4th, the bid for comfort, for time, for attention is framed with anger and frustration or demand because we aren't confident and safe in the relationship. We don't believe that we can get it without demanding. Pardon me. Then couples can end up into power struggles instead of quality contact that actually soothes, heals, and reassures and strengthens the bonds in the relationship. And finally, we may minimize the emotional need for contact and in turn and instead try to transfer it into actions. And the most common pathway is through sex. So rather than expressing the need for emotional connection, one or the other partner may try to achieve it by demanding more and more sex. But because it doesn't really provide and meet that core emotional need, the demand for contact just keeps on continuing until the underlying issues are resolved. Pardon me. So we distort and disguise our longings for safe, secure, emotional connection. But it's harder for our partner to see us and respond to those longings when we're so good at hiding or distorting our needs. These destructive patterns of interaction will ultimately destroy the safe emotional connections that once sustained our capacity to love and to be loved in our relationships. So in summary, love begins when we seek and find someone that we imagine and believe will meet our emotional needs for deep and secure attachment. And love ends when when those needs are persistently not met and are replaced by attack and or withdrawal. Thank you very much, and I hope that this has been useful and will help you to find or reestablish or strengthen your emotional secure relationships.